Let me first and foremost, before we dive into housekeeping, welcome you all warmly. This is our yearly check-in point in which we look back as an association about what the previous year has brought and has presented us with, and how we are going to approach the next calendar year. In this case, I would say next working year, which ends end of August, together with the data space first contract. So that's an important momentum. I'm happy that you're all here to share this momentum, to get up to speed with what ENA has been involved in over the past couple of months. And you've probably noticed in the program that for the very first time, we will be taking a rather thematic approach to the AGM. We wanted to, of course, deal with some of the formalities of what it means to be part of an association. So indeed, very, very briefly at the end of the meeting, we will talk you through the materials that we've prepared, reporting on and planning activities of the ENA for 2026. But we want to spend the bulk of this meeting to a topic that is so high on all of our agendas that it's currently almost taking over or hijacking all conversations and operations in the sector. So we'll be talking artificial intelligence, but doing it through the Europeana and the data space lens. I'm very much excited about this. It is my first year as a chair to welcome you in this AGM. I'm very happy that I didn't have to prepare for this on my own. I have 5 colleagues on the management board, Juha, Ines, Mariana, Eva, and Chris, and I'm happy that they're here also to talk us through all of the accomplishments and all of the aspirations that we have for this group. Now, before we really kick it off, a few of our inclusive conversation guidelines. Please, first, some practical checks. Make sure that we can see who you are. Make sure that your microphone is muted whenever you're not intervening, but please feel warmly invited to do raise a hand or to post a comment in the chat or to speak up whenever there's room for Q&As. We like to see our network. So if you can use your camera, that's warmly welcomed. And maybe if you leave for a coffee or a comfort break, then it's useful to turn off your camera. All right. A couple of guidelines. Of course, we try to speak with energy, but also to listen with energy, owning up any faux pas or any misunderstandings that might occur in a discussion between people or a presentation. Let's be kind and accept that we are human. We can make mistakes. We own up to them and we make amends. If you feel that any boundaries are crossed, please do reach out to Susanna or Tamara or Ed, who are these meetings facilitators, or to me, you can do so via the chat or via email. Taking us to the agenda, as I said, we have to present some of these formal reports, but for the first time, we are not going to instigate this formal voting during this meeting, since we always had the obligation to then also vote per email. So we decided to discard the first, and you will now only be able to vote via email. We won't spend any time on that today, but of course, we want to briefly introduce you to what is actually in these reports. Before that, we are fully putting our antenna in the direction of artificial intelligence, bringing you up to speed on where we are as a Europeana initiative and as an association at this time being, and what happened over the past couple of weeks when a bunch of us came together in Copenhagen to really get hands-on with the topic in a workshop. voila, I welcome Kirsten Arnold, chair of the aggregators, and Harry Verwaayen, director of the Europeana Foundation, to join me in this opening session. And I wanted to start off by saying that even though AI is changing rapidly, not only our personal but also our professional environments, there are some things that we as a Europeana initiative are fully committed to not losing track of. And I would say that number one is this mission statement. This is still who we are, and this is still what we do. We democratize access to cultural heritage data, which means making it findable, discoverable, representative, inclusive, diversified, really part of a landscape of data spaces where data is flowing freely and everybody ideally finds easily what they're looking for. This is in the end our horizon that is pulling our operations. But of course, we cannot ignore, and we shouldn't ignore what it means to have artificial intelligence as an added power agent within our sector. And since a year, I think we have been actively working towards Europeana becoming a thought leader in the responsible adoption of AI in the cultural heritage sector. So where do we stand? It's not that it's this year that we suddenly fell into the topic of AI. No, of course not. We have our 7 thematic communities, and many of them have been following what's happening in the field of AI for many, many years. But we see now that the acceleration, the pervasiveness, and the omnipresence of AI is really requiring us to look closely at ourselves, at our mission, at our values, and to see how we can align the growing influence and impact of AI in our daily operations and our longer term strategies. So how do we deal with any seemingly inherent contradictions in the use of AI in the cultural heritage sector? That is something that we need to flesh out together. And most of all, we should try to get some clarity on vague terms and on some ambiguity and uncertainty that are still abundant, I would say, in our sector. Because this, and I thank Harry for this inspiring visual, this is often how we feel in the sector. We have these valuable data collections where many people have worked on. This data is curated, this data is enriched, this data represents core narratives and memories that we share. And often the feeling is that these these big tech companies are just throwing out their vacuum cleaner and sucking it all up without us as a sector gaining anything in return or having been able to contribute something as let's say to pull that lever to allow tech companies to use our data rather than just going ahead and taking it. So what we have been doing over the past year, and why am I saying the past year? Because last year in December, we asked our 7 thematic communities, look, what are your top priority topics for 2024, 2025? Every community put AI very high in the ranking. And this is when we decided it's time for a cross-community transversal focus year. I think we really accomplished that with the support and the driving force of Europeana Foundation and the Europeana aggregators. And this is how we came to a series of activities, which we will describe in a minute. Just to trigger also maybe your thinking about this topic, is that we started to question more and more why we are always talking about AI for heritage. How can AI help our operations, accelerate enrichment, smoothen out tasks that perhaps humans find repetitive or uninteresting? These are the kind of questions we've mainly asked so far. Now we are turning the table. We're also looking at what is valuable and valid from our point of view to invest in AI. More even, if the AI sector is looking for our data as a valuable good to train algorithms and to improve performance, then this is a service that we can offer, but of course, not for nothing and not without any rules or boundaries. All of this, the reciprocity, the potential reciprocity in this relationship should also align with the three core values that Europeana has fostered since its very early days: to be usable, mutual, and reliable. These have been really our guiding thoughts in the past couple of months. A first event that I want to tell you about, and maybe you've been a part of it, in spring of this year, an alignment assembly was organized via the Polis platform, which was kind of a collective intelligence gathering activity in which we tried to indeed clarify some of these ambiguities and the vague apprehensions that have been so proliferant in the past couple of years. We tried to discover on which kinds of statements, because people could indeed position themselves with regards to a bunch of statements on AI, and we tried to discover where people actually seem to mostly agree, where high friction occurred, so very different opinions, or where uncertainty indicated that indeed clarity had not yet been achieved. Extremely interesting exercise. Big kudos to Europeana Foundation as well as the Netherlands Institute for Sound and Vision for curating this so diligently, because reading through the report is almost like reading a detective novel. So it's highly intriguing literature, which you can also consult via Zenodo, and we will share that link for sure in the slides, maybe also in the chat, if one of the colleagues can take care of this. This is, of course, not where our efforts should have ended. So a survey is one thing, getting a grip on some of the positionality considerations within the network, within the initiative, within the sector, was of key importance, but then we needed to start really having conversations with stakeholders, with our ecosystem. Yeah, this is one of the impressive stats that we can note with regards to the AI Alignment Assembly. You can see that over 10,000 votes were cast. So even as a first step in this journey, I would say that is impressive. Please go and have a look at the report. I promise you won't regret it. So out of this consultation and preparing for follow-up conversations, we defined 7 key themes that either great consensus, great friction, or great uncertainty prompted us to further investigate. This is about, among others, developing our own narrative on AI as a sector, looking at where and when and how can we make heritage data available as AI training material. What about environmental impact? Do we have any concrete ideas on how to pursue climate action when it comes to implementing AI? What about bias? This is one of the big skeptical points within the sector, that AI might enhance, perpetuate, or even amplify existing data bias. Building capacity and literacy, forging alliances beyond the sector. And if you think carefully about this, we are talking here not only other data spaces, but certainly also other types of sectors. For instance, those of policymakers and those of private companies. So is it an idea that we indeed make alliances with carefully selected tech companies? It's on the table. And then finally, which AI use cases are desirable, should we want to achieve? Which ones do we deem rather undesirable? There was, a significant amount of differing opinions on the topic. And that's interesting because when we define how we use AI in the sector, we usually have a checklist of tools that we like to use or results we would like to see. But maybe not everything is as useful or as ethically responsible, especially with regards to cultural data. Okay, this was step one. The publication of the paper on Zenodo was definitely step two, coming straight from that effort. And then we decided to have the conversations face to face, small group of people to begin with, to then enlarge the scope to a broader constituency. But this is our cross-community workshop group picture taken a couple of weeks ago in Copenhagen. We came together with about 40 people, carefully selected to form a quite complementary bunch of people, I might say, to dive deep in these 7 statements and the 3 dilemmas somehow that are represented by them. And I take this occasion to give a big shout out to all of our communities. Of course, this was a cross-community workshop, but in particular our tech community. Greg Marcus, Andrea, you know who you are, all the members of the steering group, Jill Cousins, you have been a force of nature in the way that we love you and respect you, and of course the team at Netherlands Institute for Sound and Vision. It was an eye-opening activity of which we will harvest fruits for quite a while to come. I believe this is the point, Harry, where I deliver the narrative to you, because you're going to go over some of the thoughts that emerged from that Copenhagen workshop.
Yeah, thank you, Sophie, and good morning, everyone. Indeed, it was a really fruitful and interesting meeting. We spent in total about a day together, and we ended up with a small webinar hosted by Ines, where we tried to reach some of the conclusions from that workshop. So what I'll do now is I'll take you through some of the takeaways. I won't call them conclusions yet. I think it's fair to say that this is only the beginning of an exploratory phase that will continue in the coming months, and we'll come back to this. But there were some interesting takeaways, I thought. The first one was, if you read the report, you'll see that some groupings were made. It was suggested by the report that about a third of our respondents, 372, as you saw from Sophie's slides, you could classify, if you want, as boundary setters, meaning that they are interested in the topic of AI, see some opportunities, but they predominantly want to engage with AI, but first want to set some boundaries. While 2/3 of our respondents could be classified as opportunity seekers. That's how we looked at the results. And the interesting thing was that, when we reviewed this more, thank you for going to the next slide, Sophie, in the context of a conversation, I think we dropped the idea that this is the best way to look at our network. I think we came to the conclusion that we all have both of these characteristics in ourselves. Maybe 2/3 of us want to really go at it and really are enthusiastic about the possibilities. And yet we also feel we need to set some boundaries. So that already gave a bit of a self-examination about how we feel about ourselves. The second big topic of discussion that was, running through the conversations, even through dinner in the evening, is how much agency do we really have? We're museum professionals, library professionals, archivists. Sometimes we may feel we are a little bit small compared to those big trillion-dollar valuated companies we facing. So the question really turned into, okay, is it, if we feel we have any agency, would that mean that we should build alternative ourselves, would be one end of the spectrum. We do not want to engage with big tech and we build everything ourselves, or option B at the other end of the spectrum, we should really try to cooperate in a meaningful way with these big tech and influence how they use our material or work with us. And here I feel we've left it as somewhere in the middle. We do feel we have agency. We should really bring our expertise that we've built up over, I would even say, millennia in the sphere of information gathering and organizing. And we need to both build alternatives and cooperate and influence. So examples of that could be to work with this new ecosystem that is building up in Europe called AI factories. That is EU-supported AI compute, if you want, and that could perhaps give us interesting opportunities to build alternatives or support building alternatives or work on, on the same lines as we want to work as heritage professionals. And on the other hand, perhaps we can work on guidelines, frameworks, service level agreements, and so forth for better working with big tech. So that's where agency took us. What was very clear is that we want to take a much more active role, perhaps, than we've done so in the past. As Sophie already highlighted, we've been working in AI for, 20 years now? This is not new to us. And yet, over the past 3 years, we feel, since the launch of ChatGPT 3, perhaps, we've now become into an acceleration we haven't been able to grapple with very well yet. Let's take a more offensive role. Let's take initiative here rather than be reactive. And here, for example, we could imagine us advocating much more strongly than before for public AI infrastructure. We're public service organizations, mostly. We should also see AI, if it's as important as we think it is, as public infrastructure as well. Can we do something in that arena? We then dove into a couple of what we called dilemmas, right? In the spectrum of AI for heritage and heritage for AI, the report unveiled that there are at least 3 really big things that there is controversy over. How do we make training data available for AI? If we want to do that, bias and climate. So first thing to realize, thank you, Sophie, for the next slide, is as Sophie already mentioned, we've been grappling mostly with what AI can do for heritage, and we've experimented for that. But more and more, we're now seeing that perhaps heritage material is also super relevant for AI itself. But how does that really work? Who's interested? Those are the kinds of questions we get. Who would be interested in a collection of 1,000 books from the 19th century? Well, we see in real life that there is interest in this. Not everything has already been scraped, disrespective of copyright and so forth. There are still important collections that we hold that have not been made publicly accessible, nor been digitized, perhaps. And we also see big commercial parties like Google, OpenAI, and so forth now actively pursuing contracts with us to digitize more and more material. So that gives us an indication that there is a real interest in the stuff that we steward. And I think the background for that is that AI really needs the kinds of structured, curated, reliable data that we are experts in and that we hold. On our own side, I think we have a very important intrinsic interest in making sure that our data is made available for AI because we feel we can reduce bias, we can reduce perhaps even hallucinations, and at large enrich the model's outputs as they are being developed. And the fundament of that is the realization that AI, as much as it is technology and surface tax, and there's a lot of funding around it, is primarily a social cultural technology. That's how we should see it. It's our mediation between human beings and our memory in the future. If it's important, it should be seen as a social cultural technology. So we dove into these three dilemmas. The first one, I think we came a little bit further in than the other two, but I'll run you through where we stand. So on the topic of should we use heritage as training data, I think the prevailing consensus in that smaller group of people that we worked with is that yes, there's reason why we should engage with this more actively, and this requires much more active stewardship. It means we shouldn't only be concerned with making public domain material available on an API. Perhaps we should go further. Perhaps we should make it actively available to be tokenized and so forth by the right kinds of organizations. But a big question here that has been singing around, I think, in our network is this whole idea about openness. We believe in openness, and yet at the same time, openness has led to, let's say, value extraction. That's how we felt about it. What does that mean for a conceptualization of openness? So here, I think we were very clear. It's not the problem of openness. Openness isn't the problem. We should stick to that mantra because there's some really important reasons why that should be the case. But we should investigate perhaps ways to indicate, how we feel that openness should be taken, and building in more reciprocity. So one of the things that's on the table, and perhaps for later discussion, is Creative Commons has now developed a new tool set called CC Signals. You may have heard of it. Could we investigate that as a way of building more mutuality back into the system? In the next slide, you'll see that we're also investigating other areas. Here we're also taking stock of what's happening in befriended types of organizations like the Wikimedia community, where we could see maybe, diagrams like this emerging, where for individual access, openness will always be the prevailing method. But perhaps if we start thinking about programmatic or even bulk access by machines, some kinds of restrictions or at least conditionalities we could foresee. And these are the kinds of things we would be investigating further in the coming months. As I said, for bias and climate, I think we feel strongly that there's something there that we need to grapple. We should, as professionals, see ourselves as being well versed in what is bias, how to contextualize bias, and so forth. Taking, I think, as a given that there will always be bias, but the way we need to think about how we can take care that bias doesn't become harmful bias in the way that data is represented. There's a lot of work that still needs to be unpacked, but I think here we can also build on expertise available through projects like DBias, which have been very successful already. For climate, similar situation, I would say everyone agrees. There's no disagreement that we should address the topic of climate impact. AI has even more than normal digitization process an impact on the energy supply and so forth. But for the solution side, I think a lot more work needs to be done, maybe in the form of guidelines, charters, those kinds of things, to be continued later on. This all led us to a slightly different perspective. I think this still needs to be unraveled properly. The first picture that Sophie showed with big monolithic organizations dictating how we engage with AI in improper ways should now become replaced by an alternative vision. And I'm personally very keen to work with all of you to see how we could manifest that vision. I think the elements of that we start to draw out is that instead of working with 5 to 7 big organizations, we foresee an ecosystem, perhaps with smaller language models, where humans play an important part in the loop of events, and where we actively experiment, conceptualize, and so forth. But this would be something that hopefully in the coming 1 or 2 quarters we could really work through. And I think our next speaker will. Oh yeah, this is sort of a first sketch of maybe where we could foresee ourselves spending most of our attention in emerging AI opportunities for sectoral transformation. That's sort of where Europeana has traditionally played an important role. I'm now going to hand over to Kirsten, I think, to take us through some of the thinking for the next process.
Yeah, thank you very much to both of you, Sophie, for setting the scene, and for Harry for talking us through what has happened so far. You can see a lot of thinking has already gone into this, but of course we want to continue that thinking. And this is just kind of the timeline that we foresee within the next 6 months. So we are currently in this process of developing a draft narrative from the alignment assembly, from the workshop that we had in Copenhagen, and kind of try to kind of drag out the key topics. This will also form the basis for presentation at the Fantastic Futures conference in London in early December, arranged by our colleagues at AI for LAM. And then in the next year, January, February, March specifically, we'll be trying to be really active and engaged with all of you to really kind of develop this plan further. And an initial milestone of this will be a white paper, and there are already kind of definite possibilities to present that and gather some more sectoral input, so to say. There also is the general horizon of the work that is happening on the EU level with regard to the cultural compass for Europe, which has several key areas and priorities, and AI, of course, is one of them. So there's the expectation that there will be an AI strategy for the cultural and creative sectors in the first quarter of 2027. And we would hope that the white paper that we are producing in the initiative can form a basis or be an inspiration for that strategy as it's being developed. If we go to the next slide, this is just kind of an indication of we want to do this together with you. So we will be doing kind of deep dives into specific topics. I mean, we had the example of CC signals or of the climate change, where we do have communities within ENA who are specifically working on those topics. So it might be that we are looking specifically at engaging with them on those. But we also see further engagement in the broader sense with stakeholders across the EI. And if you go to the next slide, please, there already are a few things in the calendar where we want to continue this. So we have to, let's say, recap and further engagement possibilities this afternoon with the ENA Members Council, and next week, Tuesday, with the Aggregators Forum. There also will be, at the end of the month, an in-person EI leadership meeting, so where the ENA, EEF, and Europeana Foundation leadership comes together, where we also have AI on the agenda, and probably will try to kind of prioritize next steps a little bit and think about further engagement possibilities throughout the first quarter next year. So stay tuned, and we hope to get your feedback and expertise into this work in the next few months. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you so much, Harry. I hope that everybody's blood is starting to boil as it is in this small group that we met in Copenhagen, because people were so deep into the topic and having such meaningful conversations about this subject, that I think in the next working year, this is not going to disappear from our priority list anytime soon. And indeed, thank you, Kirsten, for pointing that out. We want to do that together with as large a contingent of our constituency, of the Network Association, of the Europeana ecosystem as possible. Now, we have prepared for you, as a follow-up to this introductory session, kind of recapping and reflecting and also looking forward, we have foreseen a kind of a personal digestion of things discussed during the Copenhagen workshop through a couple of our community members who actually were present there. So we have invited 5 speakers to join us, who will be guided through an inspirational conversation for sure by my colleague, Vice Chair of the Network Association, Ines Vodopivec, who is coincidentally or not, also the Secretary General of AI for LEM. Ines, the floor is yours, and I also ask the panelists to please unmute and contribute. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophie, and hopefully you hear me. And thank you very much for, first of all, for the opportunity that we can work together. I have to say that I'm very proud that we can build up our new fantastic futures, AI for LEM and European initiative together. I think we have the power in the collaboration. And what is more, I think it's very important that the communities, so that the members of ENA are the ones that are leading the process and are engaged deeply into the development itself. If I may say, you have been now hearing from the ones that were leading the workshop in Copenhagen 2 weeks ago. But on the other side, I also have to say that the workshop was organized because of the expression of the members of the communities about the specific areas of AI work that we have in our institutions. They were eager to work on this, they were eager to know more and to collaborate for better development in the sector. And for this reason, of course, it is very important that we also hear from the participants of the workshop that we had. What is their opinion? How did they see if we did well with their expectations, what they can take out of the workshop? I have to say that if I just go back to the selection process, it was a huge interest into the workshop. We received more than 200 applicants for only 30 places, so that the selection committee really had hard work. And for this perspective, I have to say big thank you to all the selection committee members, and particularly to Jill Cousins and the tech community steering group, who did huge efforts to organize the event, and then also to the members of the SNK, so the Danish National Gallery, and Marete, who assisted us throughout the whole process of organizing this event, I think from spring this year further on. But of course, as I said, the whole process started in December last year already. And so now I would like to invite Estela Onsis Nugar, Gabriela Manista, Nadia Nadezan, Maiken Overgaard, and Killian Downing, if you are here with me, to please share your thoughts on how the workshop was. What can you share with us? And you have some questions on the slides, but of course I can also read them loud, so for everybody to hear. So the first question to all of you would be, where were the key ideas, words, and learning insights that you can take out of the workshop that they had? Maybe, please, Estela, I have you first on my screen.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much for this kind invitation. It was a pleasure to be part of the Copenhagen workshop. It was really, really interesting and really, really insightful. So on the first question, I've prepared a little bit in a script, but one of the things that most struck me was the dichotomy, no? It's the use or not use. The opportunity seekers or the boundary or boundary, no? It's an opportunity or it's a boundary. And I think that it's also embedded in the initial question, in the statement, no? Should we advocate against accelerate use of the AI in the cultural sector? One of the things that I've been thinking since the workshop is the acceleration process. So we conceive AI as an accelerator, and we should maybe conceive AI as an augmentator. So it does not need to accelerate things, but it should augment our potentials. And this maybe would be a more positive message. And because acceleration, it's something like when you go in a car and you go very fast, it arrives in a moment that you're scared. It's scary. So for me, the AI acceleration, it's somehow also very scary. And that's why we are letting technology evolve so fast that most of the cultural heritage institutions and other institutions, I'm from a university, we do not have a clear AI strategy set in our institution. So we do not need why, how, and for which tasks are we using AI.
Yeah, exactly.
We are all playing with AI, but for what? It seems to be in an exploration moment rather than on an implementation moment. And so then there is a need also on an interdisciplinary dialogue. I think that has been already mentioned this. Systematic research, no? Also aligned with the European values. I had some struggles with the term European values. Which European values and what are not? Sophie knows that, no? What are European values? It's something very abstract, but so how do we align with European values? And then this triangle, usable, mutual, and reliable. If we use AI, is this a triangle safe in all aspects? So usable, no, it's workable, mutual, collaboration, and reliable trustiness. So if we use AI, can all these elements take advantage without entering into confrontation? So this would be my first takeaways.
Okay, thank you, Estela. Yes, excellent. Yeah, we actually use AI as I'll say, a buzzword. It's a generic word, but actually it's a lot of different technologies that we can use in our workflows. So this is also one aspect that we, of course, have to look on. Maybe Gabriela, then I have you further on the screen, please. What is your takeaway? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the amazing workshop and inviting me here. I will share maybe some words inside from the workshop from the researcher perspective, I would say.
Excellent.
So for me, what really stayed with me after this whole 2 days of discussing the AI were two interconnected ideas. So first of all, openness, and then responsibility that comes from this openness. So from the research perspective, I would say that I was struck by how urgently we need to rethink our data ecosystem, because we all often talk about collection becoming a data, but this is now from the perspective of AI. So this is not only about the digitization or making reproductions, but it's about treating digital like heritage objects as very structured, machine actionable data sets. So this is all not only my words, but also it can be found in the Santa Barbara statement, in Vancouver statement, and this shift that we are now facing is opens very like a lot of opportunities, and in the computational research, in digital humanities, creative reuse, but it brings also like these responsibilities. So I would say that during the first session I attended, we discussed how, if we want culture and heritage to have a meaningful role in shaping AI, we need to ensure that our data is still according to the FAIR principles, like findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Because as Harry said during the presentation, not everything was scrapped yet, of course. And then the second day we put our attention more to the bias. So we shared our ideas, but our failures, some cases. And for example, I can share with you one small part of our research that we are doing in Poland. We are analyzing the website of the museums here, and we saw that data, it's also very fragmented, outdated, sometimes incomplete, and that affects that stories, what stories are told, and what is missing which voices are not heard, and this makes the whole reflection about what we, of course, saying in a very simplified way, giving or feeding to AI, what narratives and what biased are in the data. But of course, not everything is so depressing. We also discussed a very positive Swift, not only the trend, because I can see it since 2 decades already, that researchers and cultural sectors are turning into storytelling, into narratives, into these voices that were silenced for a long time. So that's something we need to, of course, keep in mind again towards working with AI. That is not only about the data quality, it's very much about the data quality, but also about the diversity and depth of the stories of the data that we are enable AI to learn from. And so for me, I would say that the key takeaways is that still openness is still should remain our guideline, but we need to know how to actively connect it with ethical and inclusive approaches to data when it comes to feeding, again, like very colloquial way, feeding AI. Thank you.
Yeah, I really like the thoughts that you shared with us, that we have to rethink the data systems, that is for sure. And that is where also we were counting on the aggregators' view. So maybe I don't know if we mentioned it extra, but at the workshop we also had ENA members that are also active as representatives of aggregators. So we could also intake this part of the I'll say the effort, but also work that they do, that we know how to develop the systems further on. So yeah, this part is also very important. Nadia, I would ask you then further, if I may, what is your takeaway from this from the workshops that we have?
I just want to say good morning and thank you for the invitation. I found the conversations very insightful and exciting. I get really interested about the part of agency and thinking about what does AI literacy actually mean? What does it mean to have confidence? Because when you exercise agency, it usually comes from a place of at least understanding your position and what you want and what you don't want. And that is something that I think we're actively defining right now, which is an exciting time, because I think in a lot of these AI spaces, you don't want to seem ignorant, but it's when we make mistakes and ask questions that we create opportunities to learn. And with that, I also think that when we were going through what might be the strengths or weaknesses or opportunities, I think there is a really big opportunity for this use of being a data steward or creating a data trust, or being guardians or safekeepers of data and defining what that means. The Serpentine Gallery actively tried to define the role of data steward in an experiment with a choir, where they had a role and they defined that role when they posted the opportunity, like a job, and they're like, you will be a data steward, and then they outlined what that meant. But like when you actively create these roles, you create references for these roles, you create a new learning and a pattern. And I think this kind of language is really interesting in terms of like, what can it be in practice? Like in this space, both small and large institutions can innovate the process of curating data, which is like a huge strength in the sector. And I think it's a very opportune time for people to experiment in different ways and create opportunities for the network to learn from each other. And that's what I found for me to be most exciting and interesting about these discussions.
Yeah, that is true. And it's also a parallel to, and we have been talking about that also, a parallel to what is happening in open science. So in open science, we also have data stewards, etc., etc. And we are also always advocating for open data, for open access to all the research and similar. So of course, we in culture, there's it's not nothing different actually. So we also should go in parallel in what is happening in the sector of science also, because the cultural is typically the cultural data is typically many times also a part of research that is happening. So specifically in for example humanities, social sciences research, cultural heritage data can play a major role. So AI literacy and data stewards are the ones that should be also implemented in the workflows of cultural heritage institutions. Yes, that's really, really important. Maiken, I have you then next on the screen.
Thank you so much, Ines, and thank you everyone for inviting me to this exciting morning. It was a pleasure being part of the workshops in Copenhagen. And I agree with what has already been said, so I'm going to point to some other aspects that I found interesting throughout the workshop. I want to highlight the collective methodologies applied throughout the workshops. Often when we conduct workshops and have this goal of actually collectively creating something, it can be very difficult. We had limited time, but I just want to highlight that this was a truly collective effort, that the team conducting the workshop were really able to extract information from everyone. I believe that everyone felt heard. And the reason why I want to highlight this is because when working with AI, I'm based in Copenhagen, Denmark. I have a community of people interested in art and the cultural sector and AI, but experiencing this on a European level and experiencing that we can actually agree on very important aspects was something that I take with me, because I believe that we have the possibility to create other narratives about AI than the ones coming from big tech. And I found that this forum is actually able to create these sort of alternative narratives on how to act and work with AI. So I just want to say that I really support this aspect of finding a joint vision and working together. That is what I take with me, actually, this positive notion of the fact that it is actually possible to create something together. And I just want to say we ended the session sitting 30 people in a room trying to edit a PowerPoint together, the PowerPoint you just saw, and we actually managed. And I was just, when we started the process, I was just like, what is happening in this room? 30 people trying to edit a PowerPoint. But it was just extremely positive, and it was very, very affirming that we were able to do that. So thank you very much for that.
Yes, I could not agree more, I have to say. And I can just repeat the words that Harry Ryan, so the General Director of Europeana Foundation, said, that we were a dream team, really. It was, I haven't seen a group of 30 representatives from all over Europe, from all generations, from all different backgrounds, working so positively together to a common goal. I think it's also it also shows us that we are really working on a theme that is important to each and every one of us. So with this, I would then just invite also Kilian to share his thoughts on, and I would welcome him in our women's sector here. And please, Kilian.
Thank you, Ines. Good morning. Yeah, I totally agree with everything that's been said, and I think the workshop was really rooted in the recognition of the agency, in the trust that we bring to the table, and I think it allowed for some really valuable conversations that kind of demonstrated how the cultural sector could lead by example in shaping sustainable and ethical approaches using AI. For example, developing an AI sustainability charter would offer like a real unifying framework to balance innovation in technology with its environmental and social kind of impacts considered. We were kind of discussing how there's an urgent need for national digital strategies for cultural heritage, as many countries still lack kind of coordinated frameworks for creating, preserving, and sharing digital cultural heritage. and these could include considerations around the use of AI. The key takeaways that stood out kind of centered on the need for a shared values-based vision for how AI is used across the cultural heritage sector, which is grounded in environmental sustainability and transparency and collaboration. And one proposal which came out of that workshop was that idea to develop a Europeana-led AI sustainability charter. And it was kind of discussed how that would build upon the ethos of Europeana's public domain charter as a precedent for setting out our kind of shared principles, our commitments, and our values. And as part of that, the kind of discussions were focused on national digital strategies as part of that, for kind of effective AI strategies and cross sector collaboration with like other NGOs and other types of data spaces within the EU. Yeah, thank you, Enes.
Thank you very much, Killian. And this is with the limited time that we have still. This is also like a wrap up. Thank you very much, Killian, for doing this, because it also answers the last question that we have, and that is what would be needed to move forward from this collaborative effort towards a joint statement on AI. And I think the proposition that you also mentioned, that we do a sustainability charter of Europeana on shared values and strategies that can be also used on the institutional level, but also on the national level and maybe also regional level. This is, I think, maybe the positive path that we can take, and we can think about it. So with this, I would again say thank you very much for all the participants. It was really amazing to have you all in Copenhagen, also the ones that are not in the panel. I'm so sorry I could not invite everybody, all the 30 of you. It would be great to hear from everybody what is your insights. But of course, you can always reach out to us, or on Basecamp, or on our management board email, or also to the Europeana Foundation, or if, other contact points, and share your views and expectations also maybe. And maybe if you would like to be engaged, I would also invite you to further follow up what we do and what we aim to do, and please engage in maybe some further collaborative work that we are aiming to achieve. So with this, I'm not sure if I should give the floor back to Sophie.
Thank you, Ines. Thank you very much. Can I ask all the participants to give a nice virtual clap to our panelists,
Yeah.
also to Ines. Thank you for chairing
Thank
as a true virtuoso. I see many nice reactions in the chat, and indeed, what a richness it is, this multi-perspectivism. So there was the collectivity of the effort. There were points of let's say dense conversation and consensus, but seeing it through the individual lenses of these 5 panelists kind of reflects the importance of having actually these conversations with a wider remit than a small group of people. So I think that the cross-community approach really worked to our benefit here. And indeed, Ines, as you pointed out, please, for those of you who would like to be involved in such a next possible cross-community activity, please keep track of what's happening, read the ENA newsletter, and be quick to react once a new call is posted. All right, this takes us from something that got us really excited to something that should also get us excited, because the formal reports that we briefly want to walk you through, and I'm trying to take control of the screen again. Hoppa. Yes, should work. Okay, these reports, they will take only a few minutes. If everything's all right, you've also received the links to be able to read them beforehand or to catch up after this meeting. Just a couple of highlights we will discuss with you now. Any questions you might have, please post them in the chat. And once the meeting is over, please don't forget the voting. This is important for our association. Ines, may I invite you back for a brief revisitation of what's actually behind us?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sophie. How many minutes do I still have? It's 10:33.
2 or 3 minutes.
2 or 3 minutes. Okay, thank you. So can you give me the next slide, please? I will be very short. So as you all know, we have General Assembly once a year. So the last one was in 13 November 2024. We had more than 100 members, and we have also more than 100 members today, which is an excellent number. And we just wish to grow and achieve even better results. This was also in focus for our priorities in 2025. In 2024, the key activities were more of network development and engagement of ENA members. We had country groups pilot and first ENA outreach event, and we tried to really strengthen the collaboration among members, among communities, among the management board and all representatives that are active in our network. The strategy to 2025 was already published some time ago, so hopefully you all saw the strategy. You went through the key aspects, so I would not repeat that. Maybe you can just go further, Sophie, if I don't have time. You will also vote on the document, so that's something on your table to do. For the financial reports, I will then invite Chris Delouf to go through the finances, but overall the rating on the documents was a bit diverse on different documents. I don't know, maybe we have another slide, Sophie. Yeah, okay. What was important in 2025 was the new elections. We have 27 new member councils elected, and we have now one of the most active councils up until now. All the members of the MC are really engaged, and they are proposing new themes, and they are engaged in communities, and they are participating in person and in online meetings. They start discussions. They propose themes to be on the agenda for the MC meeting. So it's really amazing to work with the new MC members. The ENA network grew by 800 members just in this year, which is also a huge number of new members in ENA community. And as we also saw with this AI workshop, it's also amazing that people are eager to cooperate in the Europeana Network Association, which also shows us the importance of what we do and what we can share as in the collaborative spirit. With this, I would close this part. I'm not sure if I have another. Okay, maybe just a bit about the communities. We still have 7 active communities. The portions of each of the communities, the portions are a bit diverse. The climate community is maybe I would say the smallest one, but still very active. There are in the reports for this year, there are some activities that you should see and should pay attention to. So all the communities are working on the webinars, on meetings. They are not only promoting the work of the communities, but they're really building up the new future in our space. So please go through the reports and please pay attention to what they have been doing. Sophie, I have another one. Yeah, okay. Maybe probably some of you have been participating in Digital Storytelling Festival, which was one of the key achievements of the communities. We also had webinars and the cross community, as you already know. We also worked on the Creative Climate Award report, and there many of the partners were also engaged in some projects, for which part, of course, there were some discussions this year how to work further on the projects so that all the ENA members could be even more integrated and have more benefits from that part. And for that, please stay tuned and we'll give you more information further on. Is there anything else, Sophie? No, I think so.
I think you did it. I think you did it.
Yay! Okay, cool. Okay, that's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ines. Yeah, and I think that yeah, again, you did it swiftly but clearly, and with many pointers to our members to please digging deeper if any of these notions indeed triggered your curiosity, or you want to dig a little bit deeper in what was it that was actually done, and how maybe could you become a part of any follow-up actions within or beyond communities. There's a world for you out there to discover, and it's documented in the reports and the plans that have been shared with you. Jumping now to some strategic considerations leading into what we will actually be doing in this final year of the first data space contract. What we have set out in our strategy for the next year is that we now really feel as a mature network. So it's our coming of age. We have a clear vision and mission of where we want to go, also as a networked organization, but definitely as a diversified and inclusive ecosystem of stakeholders. And indeed, Ines, your number was maybe more updated than mine. I say 5,700 plus, but we are closer indeed to 5,800. Just highlighting this was a growth of 18% of our network in 1 year. It's the highest growth that we have noted in recent years. So I want to thank all of you who have spoken about the network to others, who have inspired people to become part of this effort. This is hugely important to us as a collective body of digital cultural heritage agents. Indeed, in this final year of a data space contract, there are two things for us to do. First thing, of course, we need to execute every single thing mentioned in the contract not delivered so far. So we need to check all of the boxes in alignment with our mission and our vision, as well as our values. But secondly, we need to lay the foundations for, I hope, what we all want, namely a second contract for stewarding the data space for cultural heritage. So a lot of strategic conversations will be taking place. We will be shaping narratives. We will be putting different lines of thought together, and we need to compile or to constitute a unique value proposition, so that we're making the Commission an offer they can't refuse. And I'm so proud that this network is already a huge part of that value proposition. To be able to execute this contract well and to be strong to acquire the next one, we need to invest even more in improving, updating, smoothing the way in which we work together. So the governance, the structure of the organization, the way in which communities work together, and we measure the impact of the wonderful work that they do. This is something that we can still iron out a bit more. And that is what we will be doing in 2026. We see it definitely not as an ending. We see it as the start of what comes next, of the next chapter. We have some focus areas. The impact demonstration, this is an important one. A lot of work happens within the network, but not all of it is visible enough or reaches enough the different types of stakeholders that could benefit from it. So we are fleshing this out. How can we enhance the presence of community work throughout network channels? Deepen our member states' engagement. I can tell you that there's a really quite diligently put together strategy already in place for how we can make sure that member states are willing to support, to invest in, and to align with what the Europeana initiative and the Network Association stand for. But we're trying to enrich that with more and more layers of local, regional, and national involvement. We're doing it currently with our country groups. I believe most of you know that we had a pilot project last year. This project has been evaluated this year. We've been putting things in motion to kind of restart the effort with a small group of countries, and we hope to indeed roll that out in 2026. And there's also now this new program of a network of ambassadors that we are piloting. Our first pilot country is Finland, and our intention here is to have some high-level ambassadors for the initiative and for the data space and what it stands for, that will function, in fact, as a national network node, enthusing, inspiring, and liaising with policymakers, important heritage institutions, and so on. We will be focusing also on reuse. This is a clear ask from the Commission, not only enable reuse, but please also make it visible and make it multipliable, so that use upon use become a plethora, an inspiring plethora of reuse cases. Membership value strengthening is what we're always trying to do. And this year we have taken an important step by analyzing the motivations of people for actually becoming a member of the network, so that we can translate that into our program, into our actions. So what is it that members are looking for? Let's make sure that they get that in our year program. Then a big chunk that is on our table this year is to support the Europeana Foundation in re-envisioning Europeana Pro. So the Pro environment as we know it has been decommissioned. A new digital presence needs to be put in place. And again, let's see that as a unique momentum, an opportunity to look at ourselves in the mirror of the internet in a novel way. What is it that we want people to find and to read and to see when it comes to the Network Association? A consultation process with the stakeholdership is going to be put in motion quite soon. We will have a discussion about that in the afternoon with the Members' Council, but please also here stay tuned for any calls to action that might be made for involving a wider group of people. You heard about the challenges. They are not confined to our sector, but we have really a big responsibility to address not only how to responsibly adopt AI, but also to counter climate considerations and to think more deeply and to embed in our strategy and our operations what it means to be dealing with heritage in crisis. And then finally, we need indeed to connect community engagement with enhanced governance structures and innovation. So innovating within our network should never stop. We should do everything we can to support, to enthuse, to foster innovation throughout all of your individual and community collective activities. Future-proofing ENA is at the top of our agenda. We have worked together last year on the 2030 vision, and we believe that 2026 is actually our gateway, our portal to already ease in this vision for the future. governance, you've heard me mention quite a couple of times, is important since we find ourselves in this changed reality of the data space. So we are operating in a much wider playing field now, and we need to do it well. We need to lead here by example. Clarifying our role in projects and partnerships is in full swing. So there will be a proposal on the table this afternoon to discuss with the Members' Council. We have our governance working group that will take on another round of revisions. Then the 3 pillars of the Europeana initiative will come together and process all of the feedback. And we hope to present to you next year by this time this nicely fully fledged proposal for ENA as a project partner. Part of this is, of course, diversifying potential funding streams for our network association. You all know that budgets for culture internationally and from a European point of view are under stress. And this is unfortunately also a reality we collectively need to deal with. Going from strategy to action, this is what you can read in the activity plan. We need to we have done a lot of preparatory work in the first 3 years of the contract. A lot of things have been put in motion. In a lot of respects, we've almost started from zero and built up narratives, initiatives, processes, procedures, plans, and so on. Now comes the time that we put all the wheels in motion. That's also an explicit request of the Commission. And so the activity plan that all of you can consult is a bit like a roadmap for what we have committed to deliver in the next year. Again, improving our impact, expanding our modes of engagement with member states through the different programs that I already mentioned, and make sure that what we do and what our communities produce has chances for a wide uptake throughout the sector. Very specifically, of course, we want to keep on enhancing member value. So we want to look into alternative learning paths. We have the Europeana Academy. How can we contribute to that as and benefit from that as a membership? But also, how can we help Europeana to explore different learning systems or activities? That will be an interesting thing to ponder on. Reimagining the digital presence beyond Europeana Pro is a second important one. Then the crisis topics through cross-community work, we're hoping to install some more of these transversal lines of work. And then finally, supporting our members. So really trying to be as individual and as pointed in our interactions as we can be, while also looking at the collectivity of the sector and helping it to navigate through technological changes. Positioning ourselves, to conclude with, in this wider landscape of digital initiatives. We have the other data spaces, we have the European cloud, we have the heritage hub, we have the all kinds of digital research infrastructures. Where do we position ourselves? How do we see the pipelines from the one to the other? What could be potential scenarios here for use and reuse if we see ourselves not as an ecosystem that stands on its own, but something that is part of a digital, what did we call it? A digital galaxy, or a full space of spaces. That is what we need to deal with. And we have some work to do, I believe, before the next tender in that positioning narrative. Okay, this is definitely too interesting to brush by swiftly. I thank you for your attention for the strategic and the planning part. Now it's time to talk budget. Chris de Loof, if you are among us.
I'm here, but I
You're
hear
here.
myself in echo.
Hello.
Don't know what's happening. You hear me?
We hear you just fine.
Yep. Okay, perfect. I'm there somewhere, so if you switch the image from Sophie to me, then we can wave to each other live from Brussels. So, name is Chris. I'm the treasurer for the ENA, and now I think I have just 5 minutes to talk about 3 important documents. As you know, the ENA is a legal person, so that means that we have to comply also with a normal accountancy, and we have the accountancy done for 2024. What I will also tell about the financial figures is the progress in 2025 and also the proposed budget of 2026. So you received an email, and everybody of our members will receive an email also with the 5 documents you have to vote on. So just that you know that the financial report 2024 is the one that you have to vote on. That's the discharge of the ENA Management Board. So that's already a long time past, but we need to formally finalize the budget. And we have also a document with the forecast of 2026, because everything that Sophie has mentioned, somebody has to pay for. So we have a strategy, we have our tasks, we have our plan, but somebody has to pay for. So to begin with the first one, the financial report 2024, it's not that I will just explain a little bit, because this is the most important document. It's already a long time gone, of course, but you see some budget categories. And I think it's important that you know exactly what we are mentioning with the budget categories. It's you have the operating costs, you have the governance, communities, grants for European Annual Conference, the country groups, and in reserve. As you see, we have a budget of 2,000 for operating cost. Operating cost, that's the more formal cost for statutes, legal obligation, printed materials, posters, licenses. The governance cost is the cost that is that's concerned the members council. So you see in 2024 we have 14,000. Then maybe the most important for all of you are the community costs. We have 828,000. The grants for the European Annual Conference was 12,500. The country groups 20,000, and in reserve 9,000. As you see, there are some underspends. We did not use the operating cost of the ENA. The governance cost was completely completely spent. Then about communities, I come back on this in the next slides. The grants for European Annual Conference, we didn't spend them because Europeana Foundation decided in 2024 not to organize a Europeana Annual Conference. And the country groups, as you see, the country groups, we were very ambitious with 20,000. We had 3 pilot countries that organized some events, but not all was spent. And in reserve, of course, we kept it. So for the next slides. Next slide. Okay, thank you. There you see the 7 communities that we sponsor every year. We try to have at least a minimum budget for every community. So we have 4,000. As you see, in 2024, it was not really an exciting year for the communities because there was a lot of underspend. I can tell you for 2025, it's already better. 26 is still even more better. But you see in 2024, Europeana Tech did not spend too much. Europeana Research spent much. Education also. Copyright also. Impact not. Communicators not. And the climate also spending. So that means also that there was an underspend, and everything about the underspend of 2024 was transferred to the budget of 25. Okay, next slide. So 25, I will not dive deep in this one because this is still in progress. 2025 is not yet done. So this is a situation of September 2025. If you want to read everything about this budget and the overview, you can read everything in the report that was presented by Ines. It is also one of the documents that you will receive also for voting on. So as you see, for the operating cost, we're still 2,000. Governance cost for the members' council is to 20,000. The communities received a little bit more. The grants 12,500. Country groups 20,000. Project-related travel, ENA workshop 15,000, and in reserve 5,227. So what is happening? So operating cost, we spent already more than the 2024. Governance cost, we organized 2 meetings, completed meetings, physical meetings. So that means that we are spending some travel money. The communities, you see, it's already 56%, and the year is not over yet. The grants for the European Annual Conference, we organized an annual conference in Warsaw, so that means that we sponsored a number of ENA members to go there with travel costs. Then the country groups, Sophie told you already that we had the ambition in 2024, was good, but in 2025 we evaluated the country groups, and so that means that there is no spending on the country groups this year. Project-related travel, that's because we are also part of 2 projects. One is already in the accounts, the other has to be in the accounts. So we are partner in ECHOS. I will come later on, it's the next slide. And then we also organized that workshop that was introduced also by Sophie, by Ines, and by Harry. We sponsored some people to go to Copenhagen during the Danish presidency, and those numbers are not yet in those figures because this is in the forecast. The event was organized in October, so that means that we will have 15,000 extra spent also in the total budget. So next slide.
Chris, before I switch to the next slide, I see there is a question in the room from our councillor Maria Cangelidou.
Yeah.
Maria, would you like to speak up, please?
Yeah. I don't see
Apologies, guys. That was completely by mistake. Sorry.
Ah, really? Okay. But nice to see you and hear you.
Hi there.
See you later this afternoon. Chris, yes, I will now switch to this next slide and you can continue.
Yeah. So that's the budgets of the communities, always the same. You see, normally all the communities had 4,000. We decided to have that minimal amount for every community. Don't forget, it's based on an agreement in your work plan. So every year you're making community work plan. We say, okay, you have 4,000, but you have to justify it also in the budget every year. And then it's coming to the work plans are going to the ENA Members Council. And then finally, they are approved by the ENA Management Board in January, February. And we saw also that there were some communities with more ambitions than the others. For example, European Research told us that they have some extra activities, so they had received something more. So this is still possible. Everything is still possible in the sense that if you justify your budget and you know exactly what you want to obtain, just calculate your budget, and we decide about this to add to the community budget. So everything is still possible. It's not that we are lacking of money. Then what you see also is that the spending of other communities is higher than the year before. Right? That's the main message of this slide. Okay, next one. So
Chris, yeah. Chris, can I briefly jump in again? So apologies to our attendants that we are slightly over time. I foresee that we round off by 10 past, okay? So that we don't ask too much of your flexibility, but it's important, I think, to round this off. So Chris, the floor is yours.
Yeah, okay. I will not speak about this slide. This is about a project I already told you that we are participating in projects and how we are doing with that. Then also a very important slide, of course, item to vote on is the budget for 2026. And there we have to also to mention that you already heard that the data space contract will end in August next year. That means that there is always a risk that we will not have the same funding from the European Foundation through the contract as last year's. So it's still possible that there is a risk that the data space contract is not going on. But the figures that you will see and in the document, it's like we are going on. It's going concern. So don't make any trouble about the cost, but there's always a risk, and that I have to mention, of course. So we also have some money from the travel from the two projects that we are in. We are in ECOS, we are in 3D for CH. Just the only mention that I have to do about 3D for CH is that it requires some co-funding, but it's not a huge amount. So this is just 4,500 and on the total duration. Okay, and for the rest, the contribution to the ENA remains 49,500. But don't forget, we have also some reserves of last year, the underspent, which is still not, I know exactly, but because we finished our previous year in September, but the year is still going on. So next slide. So the budget, the same lines as the ones that you saw before, operating costs, governance, communities, grants, and country groups, projects, ENA workshop on AI, and in reserve. And in short, we hire a bit the operating cost to 6,000 because there are some organizational aspects that we will include in the operating. The governance is also 20,000. Communities are the same amount as last year, but don't forget what I said about the flexibility of budgets. So if you put it in the work plan and you justified it very clearly, we can go higher. The country groups, it's a bit less because we will continue, but we saw that 20,000 is really too much for the country groups, so we will see. But of course, we still have the reserves. We can also allocate it to country groups if, for example, there are 10 country groups that wants to start. Projects I already taught. The ENA workshop AI, for the moment, there is no follow-up, but it's presumably it could be, so that's why we put that budget category also there. And in reserve, that's a 23,630 that still can be allocated in 2026 to other budget categories. Okay, I think this is the most important. So about the budget, I think I told everything. You can read everything also in the papers that you will receive very soon. Okay. Budget, I thought every community will have, when we vote on this, 4,000 to spend already for 2026.
Thank you very much, Chris. I give the floor to another colleague of mine on the management board. Juha, are you still with us?
Yeah, good morning from the rainy and very grey Finland. Just shortly to open the online voting process, as Sophie told us in the beginning. This year we won't vote during this meeting because that voting was not official, but only indicative. So we concentrate on the formal voting process. All ENA members, you will receive an email where there are instructions and link to the web page where the voting will happen, and then you can vote of these official documents whether to approve them or not to approve them. And the voting time is 1 week, and it will end 20th of November at midnight. So please go ahead and read these documents carefully and then vote if you are going to approve them. And that's all from my side because we are only 2 minutes left.
Thank you, Juha, and thank you for mentioning so clearly the deadline. I'm now imagining people to sit on the 20th November at midnight behind their computer to give a last minute vote. You're welcome to do so. Any vote is really an asset for our network. Wishing you all a very lovely day.